graduation. He is in the 8th grade. So would everybody stand, please?
Everybody bow their heads. God, we are here today to thank you for all the things you have given us. Thank you for waking us up today, and thank you for letting us all be here to make this great place better in each and every way possible. Thank you for letting us be here. Thank you for letting us breathe today, and I would just like to say thank you for letting everybody here come here safe and have a blessed day. Amen.
Amen. Next would be our Pledge of Allegiance, and that would be by Courtney Smith Jr. She's a Cocoa High student, 2nd lieutenant. And Ellison Golding, senior. He's a senior at Cocoa High School, Command Sergeant Major. Upon graduation, he will enter into the Marines.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Williams,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Warner, Councilman Bovair, Councilman Goins,
Here.
Councilwoman Koss,
Here.
City Attorney Garganese, City Manager Takanich, and Assistant City Manager Fuhr.
Here.
Thank you.
And I just want to say our deputy mayor, she's not here at the time. Her mother passed, and if you all can say a nice prayer for her and her family, it sure will be appreciated. And we're going to move on to our agenda for our regular meeting of February 13th, 2019. What's the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion by Councilwoman Koss, a second by Councilman Goins. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Our minutes from the regular meeting of January 9th, 2019. We got a motion by Councilman Bovair,
Second.
second by Councilman Goin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move on to awards and presentation. We have a presentation by Ms. Miriam Moore of the Homeless Coalition.
Okay, and let me introduce Miriam. It's actually Dr. Miriam Moore.
Yes.
She is the executive director of the Brevard Homeless Coalition. She earned her doctorate at UCF, researching relationships between socioeconomic and demographic variables to academic performance among homeless students. She has a background in law enforcement, former police officer, and education, currently teaches at FIT. She's also a COCO citizen. And just to say, the Brevard Homeless Coalition is a curriculum of care organization. So basically, she writes all the grants, the federal and other, and distributes those to the providers. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. So I just want to let you know a little bit about the coalition and our goals and how they relate to what's going on in Cocoa. I have a vested interest, as you mentioned. I live in Cocoa. I've been here about 30 years now, so I love my city, and I want it to be the best it can possibly be. As you mentioned, we're actually a fiduciary agent for the state and federal grant funding. We don't directly provide BHC does not directly provide services, but we are a collaboration of 75+ provider agencies that provides housing assistance, medical care, case management, education, food, et cetera, for our individuals in Brevard County who are experiencing homelessness, and also to minimize risk of those that are near homelessness. So just a little bit of background. The poverty rates in Cocoa, it's always been a concern. We have a fairly high poverty rate. It's 26.8% overall. Over 50% of our children aged 6 to 11 live below the poverty rate in Cocoa. 9% of our over 85-year-old seniors, and 8% of our over 75 are also living well below the poverty rate. Home ownership in Cocoa versus rental property, some disparities here. 53.6% of the people in Cocoa own their homes, but we have 46.4% rental property rate. The median rent price in Cocoa is $1,250. So one of the goals of the coalition is to find ways to provide affordable housing for citizens so we can get them in housing that they can afford. So like a single parent with one child would have to work 122 hours a week at minimum wage to get a two-bedroom apartment.
Wow.
Yeah. And just our largest growing population of homelessness in Brevard County is actually families with children. So we had, in December, we had 1,553 homeless school children. Those are the children that were registered with the public schools that were listed as homeless. 125 of them were unaccompanied youth, which means they were not even with parents. They were in cars, they were in the woods, they were sleeping on friends' couches. They had nobody with them. Last year, it was about the same at this time, so we're not on target to be doing any better at this point. We need to make some changes. All right. In Cocoa, our housing-related calls for assistance, just in the last year, 981 calls to 211 have come in for housing and shelter assistance. There's a great need. There's been 9,820 countywide in the last year, so we're right at 10% of the county's phone calls just for shelter. That's not even all the calls from Cocoa. That's literally just shelter. 707 of them, which is 72%, was only from the 32922 area code. It is the highest area in the county per capita for a need for housing assistance. When we talk about our shelters, places that we have for people to go, we report our bed utilization numbers to HUD. When we have different kinds of shelter in Brevard, there's very minimal emergency shelter. We do transitional housing, rapid rehousing, and then all the projects together. We have, when you look at the utilization rate, it looks like it's low, but I need to explain that a little bit so you understand, is that the beds are actually full. Utilization rate is often reads at less than 100% because we've got a house that can house 8 people in a family, but we have a family with 6 people, we're going to put them in that house. So the bed utilization rate would only be 75%, but it's actually full. We can't get any more people in there. So that's how we read that. We don't have any shelter, like drop-in shelter in Brevard County, none. I know in St. Augustine, they do have one, the St. Francis. It's a good example of a drop-in shelter, and they can house 16 men and 8 women. We don't have anything like that in Brevard County. Oops. This is a project that was done by Lee Brevard a couple years ago, and I believe they used the 2015 data. Now, this is just for our chronic homeless in Brevard, so our literally homeless. The annual cost in 2015 was almost $28 million. And this doesn't include anything that was contributed by faith-based organizations. That's a lot of money. That's coming out of our pockets somewhere. It costs about $32,000 a year per person who's literally homeless when they're not housed, compared to $15,000 a year to keep them housed if we put them in housing first. There's a big move toward providing those preventative services too. So I want to talk a little bit about Finland and Utah because they're doing it right, and then I'm going to tell you about people here that are doing it right. Finland is actually the only European Union state that is not in the middle of a housing crisis. Utah implemented their Housing First program in 2005, and within 1 decade, their homeless rates were down 91%. The Housing First model works. It's evidence-based. It's effective. It works. It provides us a way to actually end homelessness, not management. We do permanent housing, and then our providers provide the case management to keep people housed. It's not free housing. People have to pay something to be there. We work with them on this, but the goal is to get people in housing first, and then we can deal with the other issues. So the The biggest problem that we see with people, that the areas that want to implement the Housing First strategy is actually attitudes from the community, because they're not well informed as to what it is and what we're doing. And the most important thing they need to know is that these are people who are really just like us, and they just need a house to live in, and then we can deal with other issues. More and more, we're finding that the things that concern people the most, alcohol or drug use, mental illness, things of that nature, tend to occur after long-term homelessness, not prior to. So if we can get them in a house, we can address those issues. We do have a program in Brevard County that works, and they have the Housing First model. It's called Street to Home, and they implemented this in Melbourne, in downtown Melbourne, a few years ago. It focuses on long-term homelessness, people with a disability. These are your people who are living out. These are not typically your families that are just become homeless that we can rapidly house. These are people that we have wraparound case management services to get them housing, and they have housed over 100 households living outdoors in the last 2 years. 38% of them have achieved market housing, which is actually paying like full cost through work, through disability, whatever they needed to get on it. But they're all paying for their own housing now. They all have their case management if they need it. Sometimes people don't need long-term case management. Sometimes they just need that hand up to get them out of that situation. So a lot of them were with the disabilities, and 11% of them they were able to get them permanent housing with a relative. This is an effort that was done by the South Brevard Sharing Center, the Street to Home project, and they serve the south area of the county, Melbourne and Palm Bay. And then we also have a program called the Safe Overnight Stay Program, and that's a collaboration between a number of our provider agencies too. Community of Hope, 211, Housing for Homeless, North Brevard Charity Sharing Center. This is the kind of program where if the family finds themselves homeless because the rent is skyrocketing right now, they can call 211 and we can get them into a house immediately and get them intensive case management, and within 5 to 10 days get them rehoused. Problem with this is we only have 2 houses in all of Brevard right now to do this, and there's literally 2-3 week waiting list to get families into these programs. So they have no place to stay right now. They're in parking lots. They're under bridges, they're in their cars, they're in tents in campgrounds, and just on a waiting list to get services because we have no place to put them. Solutions we have for ending homelessness, there's a lot, and it's going to take the whole community to do it. From the citizens, we really need to have affordable housing in the neighborhoods. You cannot have successful rehousing without community effort. They have to be reintegrated into a community setting in order to be successful to live there and stay there. And we really need the communities to spread accurate information and have an accurate perception of what homelessness is. Law enforcement, we need law enforcement buy-in. We need to work with law enforcement agencies to make sure that they start referring people to the services that the providers have available to them. This is going to decrease their jail volume, and it's going to keep those barriers down because there won't be as many arrests on the records, and it's harder to get them in. I believe we have the political buy-in in Brevard County. I believe we have the political buy-in in Cocoa. The politicians, we ask if we come to you and say, hey, we need a house, or we need this property, or can we change zoning here for this, or an ordinance to decrease barriers. Those are the kinds of things that we need from the political community to assist us. And then, of course, the healthcare organizations. Right now, they don't consider homelessness a priority, and I don't understand why, because over $22 million of that 28 a year is coming directly out of their pockets. So this really is a community issue, and it's only going to be solved with full community support. The only true way to solve homelessness is to put a person in a home. I mean, that's what homelessness is somebody that doesn't have a house. We can deal with everything that comes after that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That's some valuable information. Okay, next up we got a proclamation for the month of February 2019. That's Black History Month. That's going to be read by Councilwoman Kosh.
Okay. Whereas during Black History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to our economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development, and whereas established by American historian Carter Woodson, the original celebration of Black History Week was observed on February 12, 1926. In 1976, as part of the nation's bicentennial, the week was expanded to a month. And whereas the theme for Florida's 2019 Black History Month is Black Migrations, which emphasizes the movement of people of African descent to new destinations and subsequently to new social realities. Whereas Black history is rich in centuries-old efforts of resistance to the crisis with social movement, unrelenting court battles, and the freedom schools of the 1960s. Local mentoring and community-based academic and mentorship programs inspire love of learning and thirst for achievement. And whereas our country's and states' Black leaders and COCO's own esteemed African American citizens of past and present continue to forge through these times, building our nation and improving our city, making it a better place for all to live and thrive. And whereas it is also important to remember these civil rights pioneers like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, who broke down racial barriers and inspired our nation, as well as the Reverend C.K. Steele of Tallahassee, Harry and Harriet Moore of Brevard County, Reverend H.K. Matthews of Pensacola, and other leaders who work to promote justice and equal rights for all Americans, regardless of race. And whereas, as we celebrate Black History Month, we recognize the many contributions of African Americans to our country and recommit to being a nation of opportunity and hope for every citizen. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Jake Williams, on behalf of the City Council of the City of Cocoa, Florida, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2019 as Black History Month.
Thank you, ma'am. And our next item is a proclamation and recognition of Miss Betty Ann Raxton, and I'm going to let Councilman Goins speak on behalf of that. And once he's done, we're going to go down and take a picture. If we can have Samantha take a picture with us.
I am a firm believer that you give people roses when they're alive. A lot of times we do proclamations when people are gone. So today is a special day not only for Miss Betty Ann Raxton, but her family and friends, and also myself. She was a teacher of mine at McNair Middle School, so she slapped me on the back of the head a few times. I'm very appreciative of her and her family. So I would like Miss Betty Ann Raxton, please come up as I read the proclamation. And she looks so beautiful today. Whereas Miss Betty Ann Raxton, a longtime resident of Cocoa, graduated from Monroe High School, attended Florida A&M University, graduated from Brevard Community College, and received her bachelor degree from Rollins College. Whereas Ms. Raxton participated in nightly Freedom for Equality, Martin Luther King March in 1967, whereas she attended the Cocoa Beach School of Business and Technology and passed the State Employment Office's typing and shorthand test with high scores. And whereas she was hired on at City of Cocoa Police Department as the first African-American executive secretary on November 18th, 1967. Whereas her position with the City of Cocoa opened the door for other clerical positions being fulfilled by African Americans at the City of Cocoa Utility Department. Whereas Ms. Raxton was part of the Honorary Society of Economics and was declared Teacher of the Year at Ronald McNair Magnet School. Whereas she is recognized for an outstanding citizen, a community activist, and a much-loved mother and grandmother. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Jake Williams, on behalf of the Cocoa City Council, do hereby proclaim recognition of Miss Betty Ann Raxton for the leadership and perseverance she has portrayed in the community.
You all look so good this evening. And it's just so, I'm so excited. And I'm a little full. And I'm never at a loss for words. But right now, there are so many things I would like to say. And I know we only have a few minutes for each thing because it's so much to be done. But I just want to thank the city of Cocoa councilmen and the other distinguished members of the city of Cocoa council, who all that make up the got me. Like I said, I don't know why I'm so nervous, because normally they have to ask me to stop talking. But it was a long time ago, some 53 years ago, and after marching for weeks under the direction of Dr. W.O. Wells, and he was joined with Dr. Rudy Stone, we would meet at a little white church on Stone Street, and we would walk and sing those songs that all of you have heard it a lot, We Shall Overcome. And we were fast approaching the Sunday when all the doors would be opened to African Americans and others. And Dr. Wells dispatched us to Cocoa Beach, the Atlantic Ocean, the big free Atlantic Ocean, but being an African American, we could only go in a certain area of the beach. So from that, all of the eating places, the drugstores, the theater, the State Theater in the village, we would have to go up the side. And the restaurants, we would have to go to a window and order. So on this particular Sunday, and some of you would remember this, I'm sure, the slogan was, no more segregation, it is now integration. So being a black person, it was really a kind of nerve feeling walking through the front door of the Hourglass restaurant downtown Cocoa. So everything opened as Reverend Wells and Rudy would direct us and tell us we're marching peacefully and no violence. And here in Cocoa, believe it or not, we didn't have a lot of noisy people. We didn't have any fighting or anything, but that wasn't true with some of the cities in Florida. In St. Augustine, I know they burned a doctor's home and these kinds of things. But my part came in with everything being open now. It is now integration in the city of Cocoa. I could go to the Liggett's drugstore. I could go in the front door of the State Theater. Now, Pastor Wells, W.O. Wells, thought it was about time for the city to hire a black person in some position, clerical position, whether it's customer service or secretary or what, that kind of thing. So an opening came through, and he called and asked me to go and apply. So I went to the City of Cocoa Police Department, and they gave me another test. I had already passed the Florida State test, and I passed it with flying colors, and I was under the direction of Lieutenant Leonard Pickles. Some of you may know these people. Chief Corlew was the chief at that time, and I was the secretary, executive secretary in the Detective Bureau. It was a beautiful job, but it wasn't, you know, it had to get there. We had some bumpy days, but it all passed over with Reverend Pastor Wells, and Rudy would go and speak to the chief about it, and he didn't know these kinds of things were going on because some of my work was being given to someone else. However, in the end, we got along well. It was like a family. There were, of course, black police, you know, patrolmen, but never a black person sitting behind a desk, especially in the Detective Bureau, and taking dictation and typing it up fit for the judges. You know, we had black patrolmen at that time. The now Captain Nathaniel Hooks, and it was Lieutenant Willie Mitchell, and a lot of them. But no black person sat behind a desk in the city of Cocoa and typed anything. I was the one. And it went across peacefully. So what I say is, if, you know, we could just all learn to love, regardless of color or whatever, just learn to love and get along and take care of each other, we would have a beautiful world. I'm just going to recite a couple of verses from a poem that means a lot to me. It's entitled, "The House by the Side of the Road." He was a friend to man, and he lived in a house by the side of the road. There are hermit souls that live withdrawn in the peace of their self-content. There are souls like stars that dwell apart in a fellowless firmament. There are pioneer souls that blaze their path where highways never ran. But let me live in a house by the side of the road and be a friend to man. Just let me live in my house by the side of the road where the race of men go by. They are good, they are bad, they are weak, yes, they are strong, wise, foolish. So am I. Then why should I sit in a scorner's seat or hurl the cynic's ban? Just let me live in my house by the side of the road and be a friend to man. I love you. Good evening.
Thank you, ma'am.
She can't help it.
That was really nice. And Councilman Goins, your next item.
I think, just an opinion on tonight, I think this is what it's about. I think we all have business to take care of in the city, but we also, inside of the city, we have citizens. And we have a lot of rich history within the city of Cocoa. Like she was a graduate of Monroe High School. We have students here tonight that are inside of that very school right now, which is now Emma Jewell Charter Academy. So we have a lot of rich history in Cocoa. Cocoa is very important to a lot of people. Some people look at us because of bad things in the press or whatever the case may be, but we have a lot of beautiful and great people here in the city. We as a council really believe in the city. So next will be a performance by the Emma Jewell Charter Academy.
Hello, I'm the president of Emma Jewell Charter Academy, Avira Thomas, and this is the secretary of Emma Jewell Charter Academy.
Hello, my name is Annalise Fusco, and I am the secretary for Emma Jewell's Student Government Association. To Mayor Jake Williams and city council members, our city manager, Mr. John Ticanich, to our police chief Cantaloupe, I bring you greetings on behalf of the founders of Emma Jewell Charter Academy, Thomas Cole and Kimberly Harrell Cole. Emma Jewell Charter Academy was opened in 2013, serving 200 scholars. Today we serve over 350 scholars from VPK to 8th grade. Since the school opened, the city of Cocoa have been huge supporters of EJCA. Their support of our lunch and transportation program have truly been a blessing. As a scholar, I think each and every one of the teachers are all very hardworking and supportive. Teachers make everything not too easy, not too hard, so that we could use our brains and be able to understand the problem easily. And the food is very good. My favorite is Taco Tuesday. Today we have put together a step performance to thank the city of Cocoa for their support. Without further ado, let's introduce the Step Warriors.
And now I would like to present the Immature Charter Academy polo shirt to Mr. Jake Williams.
Say that again? Can you say that again?
And now I would like to present the Immature Charter Academy polo shirt to Mr. Jake Williams.
Oh, thank you, sir.
I'm gonna say, hey Jake, I wanna say their names too. Where everybody go. All right, no problem.
Oh, thank you. We'll get started here in a minute. We're just trying to get everyone the opportunity to leave. It's gonna leave.
You guys could have done that. We're expecting.
Did you wanna?
Nah, they
Wanna
all right.
wait on?
Yeah, they all right. Yeah, that was cool. I could never step, ever, like ever. I'm too goofy.
When you get up there, I expect.
Thank you all for coming. Okay, with that being the end of our awards and presentation, we're going to move on to delegation. And you got 5 minutes to expound on whatever it is you want to talk about. And with that being said, we got up first Miss Janice Smith.
I have some petitions to pass out, and is that,
Could you
put this down?
just state your name and address, please?
Okay. Janice Smith, I'm at 2107 Claremont Drive, Cocoa, Florida. And I would like to present the council with some petitions. Should I do that now or talk about it first?
You can, yeah, you can go ahead and pass them out, and then make sure you
Okay.
just give one to the clerk for us, please.
Okay. All right. Mayor Williams, council members, and everyone else present, I'm here tonight to present the city council with a petition asking the council to reconsider the issue on McFarland Park. At the October 10th, 2019 council meeting, a lot owner of Carlton Terrace presented the council with a petition asking the city to turn control of McFarland Park to the lot owners of Carlton Terrace. As in the past, I think it was 1924, the developer had dedicated that parcel to the residents of Carlton Terrace, and it was to be used as a park. The council granted the request, and since the park has been closed and our neighborhood in turmoil. At the October 10th meeting, there was a very small group of signatures on the petition, which is now, of course, grown in number. But most of the residents of Carlton Terrace didn't know anything about the petition that had been distributed, and many want the park to be returned to a public park. I'm presenting the petition with 40-some-odd names of residents of Carlton Terrace who want the city to be managed by the city and to have the park reopened as a public park. Now, we expect to have more signatures as time goes by. So I'm going to read the petition more or less. While the ownership of the park seems to belong to residents of Carlton Terrace, both residents of and visitors to our neighborhood have enjoyed the space for decades. The park, while not technically public, has operated as such for 54 years. We wish to see the park remain as a destination for families and individuals in this area. As such, we are asking the city to explore possible options concerning operating McFarland Park as a public space, free and accessible to all peoples. And we ask the city to explore methods of transferring the ownership of the property to the city itself. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Okay, next we have Mr. L. Sinclair.
Lawrence Sinclair, 1052 Mitchell Street, Cocoa, Florida. My first issue is the January 23rd City Council meeting and why a motion was made and seconded and why you adjourned that meeting with that motion unresolved, and while Ms. Koss felt that she had the right to just run away with appointment of multiple people to the Planning and Zoning Board, despite the fact that you had an open motion with a second. Now, I've reviewed the video from that council meeting and the minutes from it. And contrary to what I'm told by one council member, the minutes indicate that the city attorney advised the city council that one appointment per motion should be the way it's done. You don't close a council meeting with an open motion that's been seconded. That's just not right. Okay, I understand we don't like each other, but if you're going to represent the city of Cocoa, then you should also be required to do it by law. That motion is still hanging. It was never closed. So council needs to figure out with the city attorney how to address that, or else I'll bring litigation to remove the appointments, because the motion that was made prior to those appointments is still hanging. So I strongly suggest that you talk to the city attorney. Two more quick things. The McFarland Park thing, I have a resident between me and Mr. Williams on Highland that 6 months ago asked me what the situation was, and I called Assistant City Manager Matt Fewer. Recently, I've noticed some posts on Nextdoor by some of the homeowners in that area, in that subdivision, and I believe Councilwoman Koss, you're one of those owners in that subdivision. So my question is, how do you get off encouraging people to tell people to stay out of your neighborhood and mind their own business? The city's been paying to keep that park up for quite some time, if I'm not mistaken.
Mr. Sinclair, you need to address all of the council,
Well,
not one individual.
Well, I am, but
Okay.
that one individual posted on Nextdoor. I'm also a man of my word. The one thing I've always said is if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So, Mr. Williams, as of 4:27 this afternoon,
Mr.
suit has
Sinclair,
been
you need
filed.
to address the entire council.
Okay, City Council,
Okay,
as of
thank you.
4:27 p.m. this afternoon, a petition for writ of quo warranto has been filed with the 18th Circuit Court to remove Jake Williams for voter fraud. The Secretary of State's office is currently still investigating Mr. Williams for voter fraud. Now, you can distribute whatever comments and claims you want, but I'm here to make it clear in public, you have not been cleared of anything. And you are being investigated, and as far as I'm concerned, you are sitting in that seat, okay, by fraud.
May I say something that is really out of order according to the rules under delegations? And you're not supposed to attack or, Ma'am, this isn't exact information.
Yes. I know, ma'am. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
That's all right. It's cool.
It's all right. Thank you, Mr. Sinclair. That's all we have for delegation there. We're going to move on to our consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
We got a motion by
Second.
Councilman Bover, and we got a second by Councilman Goin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. We're going to move on to our public hearing. Our item one of our public hearing We're going to be postponing this item to the regular meeting of February 27th of 2019. And then we're gonna, and also item number 2 on the public hearing is gonna be postponed as well to February 27th, 2019. So we're gonna move on to item 3, which is approved.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Can we just have a vote to postpone on each one of those items, just for the record?
Okay,
Okay. This way it'll be picked up in the minutes as a formal vote.
okay, sounds good, thanks. Can I get a motion to,
I make a motion that we move on public hearing, item number 1 and number 2 to the meeting of February 27th, 2019.
Second.
we got a motion by Councilman Bover to move item 1 and 2 on the public hearings to February 27th, 2019. And we have a second by Councilwoman Koss. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. We're going to move on to item number 3, approve an addendum to the binding development agreement between the City of Cocoa, Florida, and 2075 West King Street Land Trust and the successor to allow the developer to conduct up to 312 apartment units associated with amenities on the parcel of land. Dodie.
So, as soon as it cycles. There. Okay, so this item is the addendum to the development agreement. The project is called Cocoa Grands Apartments.
Your mic.
Oh, sorry. There we go. That better?
Yeah, thank you.
The applicant, you should have had in your application a binder that, so everybody got one? Okay. The item is, the action is to approve an addendum to the binding development agreement between the City of Cocoa and 2075 West King Street's Land Trust to allow its successors to allow the developer to construct up to 312 apartment units and associated amenities. The property is a single parcel of land. It totals roughly 130 acres. It's on the south side of 520, midway between Range Road and Clear Lake Road, just to the west of the Honda dealership. The northern rectangle on the site is a commercial zone parcel, and then the southern rectangle, much larger piece, is all residentially zoned. The eastern sides of both of those areas are all wetlands. Wetland boundary line is somewhere in this area, and then it wraps down in here. And you can see on the site right now, there was a borrow pit. There are actually 3 areas, the main lake, and then a central 2 smaller areas. So on October 17th of 2017, City Council approved, I'm sorry, that should say 2018. No, I apologize, that's right. The council approved a binding development agreement on this parcel. The concept plan for that agreement consisted of an ACLF. There would be roughly 11 buildings with 100 units. There would be independent living residential areas, 55 and older area. And these would wrap around that existing lake and then in the central part of the parcel, southern part of the parcel. And there was a small commercial use intended on the northern property. In conjunction with that agreement, council approved certain changes to the southern portion, including a future land use change from low-density residential to medium density, and a designation of commercial over, conservation over the wetlands, and then a rezoning from RR1 rural residential to RU215 multifamily. And this was the original concept plan that was a part of that original development agreement. That project never developed. The property is now under contract to a developer who wants to construct a market-rate apartment community in the center portion of the southern part of the property. No commercial use is planned for the northern part of the parcel at this time. On September 17th of 2018, the applicant held a public meeting to get feedback from nearby residents regarding this project. 5 property owners attended, expressed some concerns related to proximity to their property and also potential stormwater impacts. And as a result of that feedback, the applicant redesigned their project to move the layout of the apartments from the perimeter of the existing Borrow Pit Lake to the center part of the parcel. New layout will include a new stormwater pond in the center to provide the apartment buildings a water view as well as handling stormwater on site. The new design includes a clubhouse, a car wash, and a maintenance building. Retains the original plan for fencing and a concrete block wall separating the project from the abutting residential and commercial properties. There's a layout plan showing the properties and the buildings around the center, and I provided you a larger view, so a little easier to read. So each of the buildings would have a center view to the new olive. This center section will become a big stormwater pond. I'm sorry, right, all in there. So in recognition that the concept plan has been prepared prior to engineering and floodplain review, the concept plan may be slightly modified in the future to accommodate changes required by city code, including for drainage and flood storage, but it may not be modified to include a different use of the property, an increase in the proposed number of units, a reduction in the required amenities, or a deviation from any conditions. The addendum also includes requirements for the developer that within 6 months that they would prepare and file all required applications, engineering plans, et cetera. They would obtain approval for the site plan within 12 months, that if the project fails to obtain the approvals, that within that 12-month period, the city would have the right to declare the owner in default. That if the owner does not cure the default within the cure period, the city would have the right, but not the obligation, to terminate the agreement without any penalty. Further conditions, the project would be the apartment units would meet minimum living area requirements for apartments in the zoning district, RU 215. That the apartment and communal buildings should be no more than 35 feet in height, and that no development other than buffer walls or fences should be permitted on the west side of the existing lake, former Borrow Pit. The developer owner would be specifically required to develop the project to include certain amenities, which would be maintained. The developer owner agrees to include a clubhouse with an exercise, workout room, sauna, business center, party room for reservation by residents, swimming pool, playground, dog park, car wash, a sidewalk around the interior retention pond, and 2 electric car charging stations. Developer and owner agrees to incorporate the use of energy-efficient lighting systems, insulation, Energy Star windows, low-flow water fixtures, modern heat pumps, and energy-efficient HVAC systems. I mentioned the requirement to construct a 6-foot buffer wall. That requirement is between areas of the property and commercial uses, and then a 6-foot opaque fence between the property and adjoining residential uses. There's requirement to install full cutoff, low-emitting or LED streetlights and outdoor lighting fixtures. The developer owner should receive a minimum of reserve a minimum of 3 2-bedroom apartment units for city law enforcement officers to be rented at 50% discount rate, to be made available on a first-come, first-service basis. And in addition, the owner shall provide a lease preference above other tenant applicants to city law enforcement officers, firefighters, along with EMS and local school teachers on a first-come, first-served basis, as long as it doesn't violate fair housing. Reviewing the comprehensive plan, there are several objectives and goals and policies that are consistent with the project. Objective 3.1.1, energy efficiency. Goal 3.7, promoting opportunity of creation of housing and infill development. Goal 11.1, which is the coordination with the school district to provide school capacity. 11.1.2 and 11.1.2.2, which are also related to providing school concurrency and an availability determination letter. As I said, we did a concurrency review. The project will meet all of its proposed development impacts, And we've also received the school capacity letter showing that there is sufficient capacity in the adjacent service areas to meet the needs. So the project will do a final review when the site plan is submitted. So the next step is, if it's approved, the addendum will be signed and recorded in the official records of Brevard County, subject to any applicable conditions, and the developer will then need to submit the site plan application. Previously, the Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval of this item at the February 6, 2019 meeting. And it's the recommendation of the board to recommend approval of the addendum to the binding development agreement and attached concept plan.
Thank you, ma'am. I see the developers are here, and I tell you, I was at that Planning and Zoning Board meeting. I was really impressed with the, even with the square footage of the units that was mentioned there. So hopefully they could come up and just expound just a little bit on it, and then we'll just open up to the public for comments, and then we'll bring it back to the council for their comments. And if we can just, yeah, just.
Flip a coin, who's gonna come out?
Tag team.
I'll lose if we do that up here. Mayor, members of City Council, my name is Philip Knorr, and my business address is 1795 West NASA Boulevard in Melbourne.
My name's Justin Trimback, and I'm the developer that wants to develop this. My business address is 3517 Retail Drive, Phoenix City, Alabama. And we look forward to being a good corporate citizen here in the city of Cocoa.
And just expound a little bit on the square footage of the units, because I know that really got me, and I thought was really nice. And we did discuss, I know, the possibility of solar panels, but anyway, you can go ahead and.
Well, we build a large unit. I know we build 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, and typically in America, a 1 bedroom unit is about 750 to 800 square foot. Our 1 bedroom units are 1,170 square foot. That's I would say heated, but I should say cooled here, and then. Also, the 2 bedroom units in America are typically running 1,000 square foot to maybe 1,100 square foot. Ours are 1,635 square foot. And then the typical 3 bedroom unit in America is running around 1,200 square foot to maybe 1,300. And our 3 bedroom unit is 1,707 square foot. And all of our units, they have large walk-in closets. We have fire protection sprinkler systems installed and everything. We have solid wood cabinets. We have ceramic tile backsplashes. We have granite countertops. And we build a large, nice unit that you can live in. The units are larger than the houses I grew up in. I know that.
Yeah, they're nice.
They're good family-oriented units.
Okay. You guys got any questions for the?
Well, I saw the pictures, and I'm very impressed with the outlay of. Didn't you just build a new one in Titusville like that?
Yes, sir, we did. We built 216 units there right off of Knox McCrae Drive across the street from Andrew Jackson Middle School. And we finished those. We got our final CO on apartment buildings in December of 17. And our clubhouse was finished last. It's normally first, but it was last. It was finished in March of this past 2018. Yes, sir, we were.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we're going to go ahead and close it to the council and open it to the public for any public comments, if anyone have any. If they have any questions of the developer or. Being none, we're going to close it to the public and reopen it to the council. Councilwoman Koss.
Well, I just wanted to ask, these are rental units. Do you have any idea what the average rent is?
I'm going to walk up.
Oh, okay.
I don't think
It's not on. Just speak on.
Oh, sorry about that. The rental units, do you have any idea what the average rental is going to be on those?
Yes,
Are they
ma'am.
like a,
We're anticipating, I know earlier I saw that they said the average rent here in the county in this area was like $1,250. Our 1 bedrooms are probably going to start out around $1,300. Our 2 bedrooms around $1,400, and our 3 bedrooms in the $1,500 range.
okay.
and for the size of the unit.
Right.
Yeah.
If you compared it on a per square foot basis, we're we'll be lower rent per square foot basis than,
And that's
And it's 3 of those are going to be dedicated to police officers renting.
yes, ma'am.
at 50% off, yes.
Yes, we do, we have several different communities, and we do that everywhere we go. It's a good thing to do.
Thank you.
Do they ever do teachers too?
Ma'am?
Do they ever do teachers too? I had some teachers asking me about that.
We love the teachers. We haven't offered a discount to the teachers yet. We always have the policemen that are glad to take it, but we do try to do at least 3.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. And just looking at all the amenities along with the square footage of the units, it's going to be a nice project. Thank you. We appreciate that. Any other comments?
No, right.
With that being said, we're
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
we got a motion from Councilman Bover and a second from Councilman Goin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. We're going to move on to, thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. We're
You
going
gonna
to move on.
start digging tomorrow?
Yeah.
No, don't.
We're going to move on to item number 5, approve a resolution of intent. Mr. City Attorney, do you need to read this in, or? Okay. We're on 5 now.
Finance Director.
Or did I skip one? Oh, I'm sorry. We're on item number 4. I'm sorry, my apology. Approve a preliminary subdivision consistent with Chapter 18 subdivision and Appendix A zoning and of the City of Cocoa Code for Lakeside Palms West, subject to conditions identified in the agenda item 19-3. Yes, you're on.
Okay, you've covered the requested action. I won't repeat that. So the location of this project, it's a single parcel of land. It's roughly 27.5 acres. It's on the west side of Clear Lake Road, roughly about a quarter of a mile south of 520. This land was formerly in Orange Grove. It's been vacant for a bit. The property is zoned RU-215. It has a single-family residential future land use. It is in the red box in the middle of the screen. Directly to the east of it, the big white space, is the Lakeside Palms subdivision. It's a phase 2, if you will, the same basic project, and the entry roads will line up. So a little background, the applicant is intending to construct a single-family subdivision with 87 lots, roughly 5 units per acre in density. The current zoning, RU-215, allows single-family homes to be constructed utilizing the minimum bulk yard and living area standards of the RU-2-10 zoning district. Council provided staff direction to limit the applicability of the RU-210 zoning designation at their October 2018 council meeting. And thereafter, the applicant agreed to enter into a development agreement to ensure that amenities would be provided to serve the proposed subdivision and to limit uses on the property to single-family residential. So the original application proposed 89 lots with no amenities, and the applicant revised the plan to convert 2 of those lots into common open space areas for the community amenities. Those will include a tot lot, benches, pavilion, and multi-use field area, a pedestrian crosswalk, boardwalk and viewing deck over the stormwater pond, and a boardwalk viewing deck at the wetlands area to the west. This is a layout of the subdivision. You can see the stormwater pond in the center. Clear Lake Road is here on the right of the property, and the entry drive, as I say, will line up with Sorrento or directly across to the east. This right here is tract B, and that will be the stormwater tract for the property. A in the middle is the main stormwater pond. And then this tract on this west end is all wetland area and has a conservation area over it, so this won't be impacted by any development. The 2 amenity areas will be this tract right up here, which will probably have the tot lot on it, and then this tract right here, which will be a play area. It has this access area strip that comes down to provide the boardwalk space here over the wetlands, and then the crosswalk across the street between these 2 lots to provide access out to the stormwater and the little deck out there. This is the actual plat. And this area is that easement. There are stormwater access easements on here on the west, across on the east, on the north, and on the south into this area, the main stormwater. So staff reviewed the application under the RU2 zoning district regulations, as I said. The minimum lot area is 5,000 square feet, minimum width is 50 feet, and the minimum depth would be 100 feet based on the RU210. Majority of the lots created in the subdivision are between 56 and 58 feet in wide and 125 feet in depth, with about a 7,000 square foot lot area. So it more than meets those minimum requirements. And the lots on the curves of the roadways, they're allowed a minimum of 25 feet. Corner lots are required to be 15% larger, and this plat meets those requirements. Buildable portion of the property is impacted by the existing wetlands. They cover most of the parcel and put it in AE flood zone area. This necessitated an additional review step, which was handled by Geosyntec Consultants. Their reviews found 4 comments back to us that the boundary and topographic survey were updated with the SFHA boundary, and that based on that updated survey and additional explanation, in the comments response letter, the project is considered to be in compliance with section 6-3561 of the City Code. The additional explanation provided in the technical memorandum is considered to be sufficient with section 6-330 of the City Code. In addition, the hydrologic and hydraulic analysis indicated that the 100-year design storm runoff volume captured and removed from the floodplain is greater than the proposed fill volume, and that this demonstrated compliance with section 6-332 City Code. And the additional explanation provided that the comment response letter states that permits are not needed for this project, that are and are not needed, and for compliance with section 6-329 of the code. The applicant's anticipating their St. John's River Water Management District permit prior to commencement of the development. In consideration of the comprehensive plan, the goal 3.7, providing opportunity for creation of housing, applies. Also goal 11.1, and the same as I mentioned in the previous presentation, 11.1.2 and 11.1.22 related to school capacity. So we did a preliminary review, and again, in terms of capacity, there is sufficient facilities to meet the proposed development, and we've also received the school capacity availability letter for this project, indicating that there is capacity in the adjacent service areas. And their final review will be completed with the final subdivision application. So if approved, the preliminary subdivision will allow the developer to begin construction of site improvements and infrastructure once all the required conditions have been met. The final subdivision must be applied for within 1 year of approval of the preliminary. Previously, the Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval with conditions of the Lakeside West Palms West preliminary subdivision at the December 5th, 2018 meeting. Some conditions remained after that were recommended by the Planning and Zoning Board have been resolved since that meeting and haven't been included in this recommendation. However, there are some additional comments that remain unmet. So the recommendation is approval of a preliminary subdivision consistent with Chapter 18 subdivisions and Appendix A zoning of the City of Cocoa Code for the Lakeside Palms West, subject to the conditions set forth below. 1, that all unresolved review comments from City of Cocoa staff or other reviewers on behalf of the city should be addressed prior to the final subdivision application being heard by City Council, unless an earlier deadline is established below. 2, to provide revised preliminary subdivision plans and plat addressing the following comments. From the Planning Division, the landscape plan depicts live oaks along the Clear Lake Road perimeter. There's an overhead electrical power line along that side of the road, and the city would prefer that different tree species be planted that would not grow up into the power lines. Resolution of tree species can be coordinated with Public Works or Planning Department prior to purchase of the trees. The Utilities Department, related to sewer, there were 6 comments provided. The sewer lateral to lots 1 and 2 should be run directly to the lot corner. There should not be any bends under the asphalt. To the label, the Clear Lake Road directional bore usable PVC. 3, the bore plan provided does not reflect a directional bore installation. Provide a proposed directional bore profile. The profile needs to show the pipe entrance location, pipe exit location, clearance from existing utilities, and proposed fittings for the tie-in connections to the bore pipe. 4, add an air relief valve at the top 45-degree bend on the west side of the Clear Lake Road directional bore. 5, move the 50-foot by 50-foot lift station site to the east end of Tract B. This will allow for the remainder of Tract B to be accessed and maintained by the city. Provide an access driveway to the lift station site. 6, reconfigure the lift station site so that the lift station structures have a minimum 10-foot clearance edge to edge from the 36-inch storm pipe. From Public Works Department, swale along the east, north, and south sides of the property to be owned and maintained by Victory Judgment LLC or the HOA, not the City of Cocoa. Additional plat review comments provided by the city attorney's office as follows. 1, the dedication shall be updated with the correct name of the property owner. Street shall be dedicated to the public. 2, updated title work should be provided within 30 days of the city council's approval. 3, utility easements shall be furnished on all sides and rear lot lines and shall be at least 10 feet wide and 5 feet on each side of the lot line. 4, the following easements shall be dedicated to the Lakeside Palms West Homeowners Association of Brevard, Inc. A 5-foot access easement for the purposes of maintaining fences or buffer walls for the subdivision along the rear of lots 29 through 53 and 1 through 13. And a 5-foot drainage easement along the side of each tract shall be dedicated to the Lakeside Palms West Homeowners Association of Brevard, Inc. Conservation easement for Tract C shall be provided in accordance with Section 704.06 Florida statutes. 6, a perpetual easement shall be dedicated to the City of Cocoa, overall drainage easements, and Tract A for the purposes of drainage and emergency maintenance and inspection of such private facilities, but under no circumstances shall the City of Cocoa have any obligation, burden, responsibility, or liability to enter upon the subject property and take any action to repair or maintain a private system, facility, or amenity. And for the city surveyor and floodplain management, all comments generated in the city survey by the city surveyor must be addressed prior to the final subdivision application being heard by city council, and 2, provide copy of St. John's Water Management District permit prior to site work commencement. And I'm done now.
Is that it?
That's it. Phew. That's the marathon.
You are underpaid and overworked.
Amen to that.
That's all I have to say about that, Dodie.
Amen to that.
Councilwoman Cos.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, Bart Gatchins from FPL spoke at the Space Coast League of Cities the other night, and he was saying they're going to the state legislature and they're hardening their infrastructure as well as putting things underground. I was just wondering, any possibility on some of these new developments that we approach them to put the infrastructure underground?
We can certainly talk about it. I know for like electrical services,
they're all.
The overhead is certainly cheaper, and it's easier to repair quickly, but it's also susceptible to salt water, and we have a lot in the air, and it's corrosive.
In the wetland area.
So, yeah, you bury it, it's a little more expensive, it looks nicer, there's a cost, you know.
On this project, it is underground.
Yeah. Okay, on this project we're here, it is underground.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
within
that impacts the trees that you're planting?
Yeah, within the subdivision, the electrical lines, the service lines are underground. It's the feeder that comes in to serve the subdivision runs along Clear Lake Road, and that's where the trees were.
Yeah.
Okay, this time we're gonna close it to well, let's have the developer come up if he wants to say a few words and just add to it, and then we'll open it up to the public.
How you doing? I'm Andy Kerbach, 504 North Harbor City Boulevard, Melbourne, Florida. I actually didn't have a whole lot of presentation to provide to you. It's going to look similar to the Lakeside Palms East, so if you guys have been out there, it's going to look very similar. The power is underground. The concern with the trees is that there is a overhead power line along Clear Lake, and we wanted to have trees to meet the landscaping requirements, but some of those trees, it's that if you ever driven down a road where you see the power lines and the trees that they have to cut out, and that's kind of the same situation that we have here, is that the the power lines along Clear Lake run right along the property line. So we just have to kind of adjust the tree and just pick the right type of tree so we don't have to have these kind of ugly cuts on those trees. And I don't really have anything else. I'm here for questions if you need me.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thanks.
At this time, we're going to close it to the council and open it to the public. We're now open for public comments if we have any. Seeing there's none, we're going to close it to the public and reopen it to the council. What is the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve
Second.
That's with the conditions, right?
with the conditions, yes.
Yeah.
We got a motion by Councilman Goin, and we got a second from Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? It passes unanimously. We then go to item number 5, which is approved resolution of intent inclusive of Exhibit B, legal description of the incorporated Cocoa City boundary. Finance Director.
Good evening, City Council. This agenda item is requesting approval to do a resolution of intent to bill the stormwater services on the tax bills. Currently, the city charges for stormwater on the utility bills. Staff has done analysis and has identified that when a property is vacant, the city isn't collecting the revenue from the stormwater. And so in order to be more equitable and ensure that we are capturing all the revenue that we can possibly generate from the stormwater system, staff is requesting approval of this resolution of intent. This is actually just one step of several steps that will have to be taken. State statute requires that the city adopt a resolution of intent at this time, usually by the beginning of January, in order to provide a record that there is an intent. And later on in the summer, there will be two other ordinances. One would be a home rule ordinance for stormwater, basically asserting that the city has the authority under state statute, home rule, to declare a special assessment. And then the secondary one would be to actually do a special assessment area with the city as a whole in order to provide that on the tax bill. Then subsequent to that, staff would be working to get the tax rolls and provide that information to the tax collector in order for that to be on the bill. So at this point in time, this action is just requesting approval of the intent to make this change. And then other decisions will be made further along, and at that time, then council would actually be making a motion to approve the actual assessment being on the tax bill.
Okay.
Okay, question.
Councilwoman Cost.
No, I just wanted to ask, so do you have any sense, will this bring down the average bill for stormwater then? Because more people are being assessed. So right now, it's about $7, I think, a month. Is it going to go down any, or?
So right now, council approved in January, on January 23rd, a study to do a 10-year capital plan. And so at that time, staff is going to be working with a consultant to determine what the capital needs are. And then in conjunction with that, there is a consultant that will be looking at a rate study, performing a rate study. So the rates are kind of like the utility rates, where they're set to generate the revenue, to provide enough revenue to cover the capital needs and the operating needs of the fund. And so at that time, it would be determined if the rates need to go up or down. I can tell you that based on current information and the way that fund has been operating, the fund just barely has enough revenue to actually operate.
And this is just an intent. I mean, this is nothing set in stone. It's just something that come on down the road.
Right. All that
to get us
information
started.
will be brought back to council again at a later date.
Okay. Mr. City
Part
Manager?
of the task that was previously approved was with Stantec, and they'll do the financial modeling, of which you'll be able to see this is the amount you would collect under the current resolution for collection, and then this is what it could be if it were collected on the tax bill.
Okay. Okay, at this time, we're gonna go ahead and close it to the council and open up to the public. We have one card here, Mr. Sinclair. You guys want to speak on this item, and anyone else that want to come up and speak on this item after him.
Thank you. Briefly, thanks for giving a shout out to Deputy Mayor Warner. I'm curious about something. I don't know. Every one of you pay a utility bill in the city of Cocoa. I don't know necessarily. I know where you live, but for me, I've come to council for the last 4 years complaining about paying a stormwater bill for one reason. It goes in my front yard. In fact, I just mentioned to Ed before a council meeting tonight, when are we going to get this drainage project that's been budgeted and funded now for 3 years going? Because a lot of us, and I'm not speaking, just for myself, Mr. Williams, I think you'll agree, you've got neighbors over there who, it's one thing if we're going to invest money to actually get a stormwater system that works, but you're telling me now you want permission to basically do what you did with the fire assessment fee. You want us to start paying on our property taxes so that you can fund building something down the road. Why haven't we been building it for the last few years? I mean, the previous mayor bragged about $100 million in infrastructure in the city. And I'm still pissed because yesterday, Saturday and Sunday, the rain alone in my neighborhood, I still walk through water to get to my vehicle. And I've raised my ground up. So I'm not sure I feel good with the council. And it actually says to also give the city manager approval to start negotiating with the property appraiser's office. I don't know. Just me? I think this is something that council really needs to look at before you start talking about giving someone preliminary approval to start doing more assessments that go on people's income tax or property tax bills.
Well, appreciate that. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I've driven those streets and here just today, looking at some of the flooding issues in the city, some areas that need to be addressed. So, is there anyone else that would like to make any comments with reference to this item? Like I said, this is just an intent. This is nothing set in stone. It's gonna be coming back to us for a decision. But anyway, we're gonna close this to the public, open it back up to the council.
Mayor, if I could provide one point, the request for the city manager to negotiate with the property appraiser and the tax collector is just to notify them that if the council approves it, we would be doing that with them so that they can prepare and have the heads up. But that's all the city manager would be approving.
Yes, ma'am. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
What is the wishes of the council?
So when would this come back to council? That's the question.
In July.
In July.
Just to say, the reason this was being presented was because we know that we're enhancing the stormwater program going forward. We actually know from the resiliency workshop yesterday that stormwater is going to be one of the biggest challenges we face. And in neighborhoods like Mr. Sinclair's and others, we really need to do some work. So the purpose of this, as I understand it, was to bring down that average cost because those changes are going to be presented anyway, that we need to make those enhancements to our stormwater system. So the impact of this was actually to bring down the average cost, to spread it over all of the landowners, whereas right now it's just going to the water utility bill customers.
Not as another funding source for whatever.
Not as another funding source. This is nothing extra. It's a matter of if it's going to be on your water bill, which I think is already pretty high. Not that we want increases anywhere, but if we are going to, some of the changes that are going to be forced upon us by sea level rise and by an increased enhanced hydrologic cycle, we're going to have to address stormwater issues. And particularly in neighborhoods like yours, we're going to have to come up with some solutions.
Of course. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
And with that, I'll make a motion to, to approve.
Okay, we got a motion from Councilwoman Cos.
This is just to, we're not making the final.
No, this is just a, yeah, no.
Okay. I don't like it.
We got a motion, we have a second? If not, I'll go ahead and second it. I'll second it. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
It's 2-2.
What's the deadline? March 1st, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, there is a statutory deadline, just so you know, of March 1st in which to state an intention to use the special assessment process to levy stormwater. I don't know,
What is that?
And this would come back for further discussion. This is not,
Yeah,
this is just for a discussion, just to make an,
this resolution is just stating an intent to employ a different collection method for the payment of stormwater, fees.
It doesn't,
You're not committing
Right.
to implementing the special assessment, but in order to keep it on the table,
right.
you would, for this year, you would have to adopt this resolution by no later than March 1st. In order to just keep this in play, I just bring that to the council's attention, that you're not binding yourself to adopt a special assessment as a substitute for the collection of stormwater fees. Right now, the city has a user fee method of collecting for stormwater. You can make that decision at a later date this year.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So how we go about, do we take another vote? I misunderstood that, that's why I voted no. But can we,
I just like more information on that.
re-vote on that, or what do we, how can we do that?
Well, right now you have a 2-2. If you want to reconsider at this meeting and re-vote, motion to reconsider the previous vote would be in order. If that passes,
I'd like to make a motion so we can. I'd like to make a motion to reconsider and rescind the last motion and re-vote on that, the item 5.
Second.
we got a motion from Councilman Bover and a second from Councilman Goin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Now we'll go ahead and take another vote on this item.
Make a motion to approve.
We got a motion from Councilman Bover
Second.
and a second from Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Matt wants to talk.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Al.
I just was going to make some comments before the vote, but just so you all understand, by doing this, you're not raising the rates. And I think maybe that was the concern. There was some mention that potentially it could, drive rates down in the future by collecting more revenue that's already, part of our stormwater fee that's just not being collected. Now, what it does provide is an opportunity to control those rates going forward. It may provide some rate relief because you're bringing in more revenue while the citizenry that's already paying, they're not going to be paying anymore. This is very common practice throughout the county for other municipalities as well as Brevard County, that they bill it on the tax bill for collection purposes. And so I just want to make sure we're clear on that and there's an understanding for what you're approving here tonight, you're not actually approving that collection method yet, but the ability for staff, the city manager to negotiate an agreement with the property appraiser to undertake this. They have work they have to do to get this on the tax rolls, and that's why there's a time limit. And so it's important that it be considered tonight. So.
Can you, when it comes back, can you also provide us with, let us know what other municipalities or what other municipalities are collecting this way? 'Cause
Sure, we'll have
it's most of them.
yeah, we'll have a list of all the local governments in Brevard County that do their billing for stormwater fees on their utility bill, and then also those on their tax bill.
Okay. Thank you there, man, I appreciate that. Okay, we're gonna move on to council business. It's approve the request for 2 street closures in association with the proposed special events.
Hi there.
Hey.
Hiya. How are you this evening?
All right.
Good. Just to give a little bit of background, first I want to ask for approval for the 2 street closures in association with 2 new special events that want to make a home here in the city of Cocoa. Just a little background, during any given calendar year, the number of street closures approved by the city council within the central business district, zoning district, shall not exceed 24 days. Any street closure lasting in excess of 4 hours shall be counted as 1 full day, while any street closure of 4 hours or less shall be counted as 1 half day for the special events ordinance number 02-2016. So currently, we have approved the street closures for the calendar year 2019 is at 22. With the approval of these 2 street closure requests, the number of street closures will be 24, which is the maximum allowed for any given calendar year. The 2 that want to come down, one is a 501c3 charity, the Preeclampsia Foundation, and the other one is for the Running Zone Foundation. They want to add they're looking for a home for this race series, which is actually 3 races combined into 1. So basically, we just want to get these on the books so that we can continue to have these folks come into the village and bring all the folks with them, so they can take advantage of everything we have to offer.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Any
Thank you.
wishes of the council or any comments?
Make a motion to approve.
We got a motion by Councilman Bover, and we got a comment.
Second.
Second from
And then discussion.
Councilwoman Cost with the discussion.
Yeah, no, I just want to say I'm really looking forward to them coming. But I do want to state for the record that we really need to be cognizant of our shopkeepers who are actually negatively impacted by closing the streets, and I've been lobbied by numerous ones. I think it really serves the restaurants and some of the others, but for those, the salons and particularly with our parking situation. We've heard complaints, but I'm looking forward to
Certainly, I appreciate that.
I will vote in favor.
Yeah, and same here. I had a meeting with the city manager with reference to that, because I noticed we were maximizing that.
Yes.
The number of days, and then I had question about the 4 hours not being considered less than 4 hours being considered a half a day, and then 4 hours or more is,
Right.
a whole day, and it's like.
Yeah, one of the reasons why it's not like, if you've been to any of the races down here, you'll notice that some of the streets are not actually blocked.
Yeah.
But we actually do a rolling street closure, and the big part of that is because of the safety. A lot of folks that come in to do these walks, and some of them have been doing them forever, and some of them are just amateurs coming in wanting to do a race. Just the sheer number of people in the street.
Oh, yeah.
We just feel like it'd be better if we could close it. We do try to open those roads up as soon as possible after everybody is kind of cleared and everything is good, so.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Okay?
Appreciate
Right,
it.
thank you.
Thank you.
We got a motion from Councilman Bover, a second by Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Item number 2 on the council business, consider cancellation of the regular city council meeting on March 27, 2019 due to the Florida League of City Legislative Action Day. And I know I'm gonna be staying over an extra day from you all, so and I know that I'm not gonna make it back in time for the council meeting, so we're just.
Okay, I make a motion to cancel the meeting of March 27th.
We got a motion
Second.
by yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
we're recommending to cancel both, a meeting on March 27th.
Oh,
Yeah,
And then on
Christmas.
December 25th for Christmas.
yes.
Why Christmas, right? I got why. Gotta spend.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
People
Yeah,
may be-
yes, for both of them, yeah.
Maybe with
I'm
their family
sorry.
that day.
My apologies. I'll rephrase my motion to cancel the meeting of March 27th and the meeting of December 25th, 2019.
We got a motion by
Sorry about
Councilman
that.
Bover.
Second.
And a second by Councilman Goin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? It passes unanimously. We can move on to city business. Approve the relocation of one restroom and one pavilion from Dr. Jolie Smith Park to Manor Park, Autumn's Place, and baseball field lightings from Dr. Jolie Smith Park to Provost Park West Recreational Field. Assistant City Manager.
Yes, this item came about due to a capital project that's planned and currently moving forward for the new Dr. Jolie Smith Center, located at the corner of Stone and Washington. And with the change in the site plan, the amenities listed in the item would need to be removed. Some of those items to include the playground will be rebuilt and relocated on site. There are going to be additional amenities associated with the new center, as well as rehabilitation to the swimming pool, basketball court area, and so it's really maximizing the entire site, and there is an opportunity to relocate some of the amenities that are currently existing at that park to other area parks within the city. Included in the item was a listing of all the parks in the city and the amenities with each. Manor Park is being recommended based on it's essentially two residential lots that back up to each other. One residential lot is vacant from any amenities and has, plenty of space for a pavilion and potentially a restroom. Now, I just want to let you know that there's been some complications. The restroom isn't a vault system, and it would require sewer access. And you may know there is no sewer access in that particular area. And given the state of the Indian River Lagoon, I think it would be unwise to put in some sort of septic field associated with that. And so we are looking at potentially other uses for that restroom, or if it could be converted to a vault system where it could be cleaned and maintained on that site. The other item are the baseball field lighting that's currently at the park. Obviously, with the site plan and the positioning of the facility, the lighting would have to be removed. It is older lighting, and so there is a need at the Provost Park West recreational field. On the east side, there were just lights put up 2 years ago. There is a need for lighting on the west. These lights, however, will not provide complete coverage of that field. And so they are looking at what they can do to repurpose those up at Stradley Park. So a few things have changed since this item was drafted. What they can do is they can reuse those poles, replace all the wooden poles that exist up at Stradley Park for not only the baseball but also the football field that's up there for use. And so we're really looking to maximize those amenities in all of our parks. So I'll answer any questions.
I have a question.
Councilwoman Cost.
So the Autumn's Place, the Manor Park, I mean, that is, in fact, we have a number of neighbors there that are close to that park. Is that appropriate for that park? I mean, it seems like that's very much just a neighborhood park. Certainly doesn't need bathrooms. Most people that use it live just a few houses away. And there's a playground, which is used. A lot of young kids go there. But a pavilion doesn't really have a view other than the houses on either side. It seems like maybe there'd be a better place
we were actually
use
approached by some residents a few years ago with hopes to establish a pavilion in the future for the birthday parties in the neighborhood, so they could use the playground as well as the pavilion and create an opportunity for those in the area. There's not a lot of parking associated with that park, so it likely would serve that neighborhood primarily.
I had a couple questions. Well, I know you just answered one of the questions about the coverage. I knew those lights at Provost would not, the lights at Jolie Smith now currently would not be sufficient for Provost West because it's too wide of a space. I guess my question is, if it doesn't go there, will potentially be, can we, install lights at Cocoa West?
We're actually working with the county for their capital plan for the next fiscal year. It appears they're projecting some additional revenue through the district for recreational fees, and I guess the primary project is to provide lighting at that field, a new system that would provide sufficient lighting for the entire rugby field. And so it would be modern, computer controlled like the rest of the lighting systems in the county.
Well, I know another thing too. I would like to. I want to pull that rugby contract because I want to check and see if they're. Because at times, if we're going to supply this taxpayer dollars, we want to make sure that the citizens in the area will be able to use that park. Because right now, a lot of leagues at times do year-long contracts with the county, and no one is able to rent the facility at times. So I would like maybe within the next couple of weeks or so get that contract. I want to see what it is, and we have to renegotiate that because if we're going to supply this lighting, I want to make sure the city can maximize. Some of the residents might be able to use it.
Certainly the Provost West field is actually for rugby use is actually quite a bit larger, and so for even youth athletics, you could potentially fit a few fields on there for use as well. And so, yeah, that space could be maximized. I haven't reviewed that particular contract, but we can certainly approach Brevard County and talk to them about some shared use of that park.
Okay. So with this motion, could we not, if we don't use, because right now we have the park names inside of this motion, but it may not be, it's not going to be accurate. So how do we make that motion?
Well, essentially you would be relocating, providing staff the ability to relocate these amenities to other area Cocoa Parks.
Okay.
And I know I've sat down with the assistant city manager, we've talked about the Parks and Recs contract because I don't even think our police department even knows some of the activities that are going on in these parks at times, and I think they just run up on them and they just happen to see them, and I just think that we need to know what's happening in our parks. We need to know what's going on. We need to have someone that's there, sitting at the table with them and, going through this stuff. And when they make contracts or decide to make contracts with other organizations, we need to play a part in that because, Provost Park was donated for the residents of that area. And when you got an outside entity coming in and we have to go to them to utilize our park, I think it's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard of in my life, and I've thought that for years. And we don't even have a key to the gate. And it goes back to the march for MLK Day. We didn't have a key to open the gates to the park there. We had to, individuals had to park along the roadside, and this is our park. We're paying the taxes on this park. And I know now, I think the police department does have a key now to it. Any parks that we have, I think our police department should have keys and access to all of them. And we need to know what's happening in our park so that we want to be a part of the process and not just, turn it over to another organization and do whatever. So, and don't get me wrong, they've done a great job with a lot of stuff, but I still think that we're not getting our fair share in some of our parks, with references to some of our parks. So, that being said, I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. So, if anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve staff to look to relocate the restroom, pavilion, also the lights.
Okay. We got a motion from Councilman Goins.
And second?
We got a second from Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay. Okay, our second item is the approval of an additional position in the city manager's office, the digital communication coordinator.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. This motion or agenda item is for approval of an additional position in city manager's office. It would be a digital communications coordinator, and it would be also to approve a resolution amending the fiscal year 2019 budget through the use of general fund contingency to fund the position. Just to give you a little bit of background, in 2014, we hired our first public relations specialist that the city had as a full-time employee. And it started off as merely a public relations position and has expanded since then. And last January, I've come to you and presented and talked to you all about the ADA regulations that have come down as of last January. And just the different requirements and the time that it's going to take to fulfill those ADA requirements. We've looked at costs for going back and making all of our back documents accessible. And we've gotten quotes of anywhere from $8 to $20 a page, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of pages of documents. So we are wanting to bring on a person that will be our digital communications person, and their main responsibility for the foreseeable future will be ADA compliance. It is going to be training staff to create accessible documents moving forward. It will be going backwards and making all of our back documents accessible. It will be making sure our website is 100% ADA compliant, and training staff to use our website as well. We'll also have social media and some other duties in there as well. And it'll free up our department to be able to focus on other issues such as what was brought up at the last meeting, installing a youth council and a citizens academy. I know are high priorities, and that's something that we can focus on too. But ADA accessibility is something that's very important, and that's something that we need to focus on, and this position will do that. So if there's not any questions, I'll be able to take any questions if you have them.
Any questions?
Just to say I'm
Councilwoman Cox.
excited.
I am too.
For you to have more staff, to be able to the Citizen Academy and,
Yes.
and the Youth Council.
You all right?
I'm all set.
Okay. Okay, what is the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion from Councilman Goins,
Second.
second from Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye. All
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously.
There was a hand up.
There was a,
Yes.
oh, well, this is not,
Okay.
yeah. Sorry. Okay, we're gonna move, we got a information agenda. We're gonna move on to reports, I guess. Mr. Weagroff?
No report.
Ms. Bowman?
Yes, council members, I would just like to let you know that if there's any utility customers that come to you that address any kind of utility concerns, you can direct those questions to Laura Howell, the Deputy Finance Director, and she can do the research, because a lot of times it requires research to look at the account and find out what's been going on and things like that, and then she can make sure that she gets back with you promptly so that you have the information to be able to discuss that with the citizens. In addition, I have left all of you this book.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
The staff decided to try and get an award for the budget from the from the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States. This is laid out a little bit differently from the books that we've done in the past, and it really is a book, even though it's quite large. There's some of it we could probably shrink down next year. This is our first attempt at trying to get this award. So it would be really good for the city to obtain this award. And what it is it takes all this budget information and tries to make it so that an average citizen could read it and understand what's going on in the city. In addition, it provides some charts and information that even us internally staff have struggled in the past to search to find answers to things, such as head counts and total debt, outstanding debt service for a year. It's required us to add a bunch of numbers over and over again. So I would encourage all of you to take a look through that. Staff did put a lot of time into it, and the same goes for all the rest of the directors. You all will be getting books also. With this being our initial year of trying to get the award, it'll take about 6 months until we find out if we actually get the award or not. But based on the excellent product that staff has done, I think that we will stand a good chance in getting the award.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
And Chief, before you start, I just wanted to, I skipped the advisory boards and committees. Is there anyone that want to speak from advisory boards and committees? Okay. Chief Cantaloupe?
I just had one thing I wanted to put out, and we'll be putting out more information on this, but Ms. Deborah Dukes, who is actually here in the crowd tonight, reminded me. There'll be a tribute to legends. It's a small parade and then a celebration at Provost Park. I believe this is the 3rd year we've done it. Am I correct, Deborah? This will be the 3rd year. It'll be February 23rd from 11 to 4. There will be hot dogs and drinks. Also, Ms. Deborah Dukes and her team will be doing fish and grits, which I can tell you is very good.
Yes.
Also, on that following Sunday, the 24th, will be Gospel in the Park, prayer and word of God and worship. And again, we'll be putting out more information on that. But I just wanted to kind of get that out there.
Thank you, Chief. I guess I'll go ahead and ball my paper up.
Oh, she got both of us, huh?
But, okay, thank you, sir.
Sorry about
Chief
that.
Evans.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council, just wanted to remind you on your calendar, you have probably seen that the fire department will be swearing in and award ceremony for our firefighters on the 22nd at 6 p.m. at the Civic Center. If you've got time and you want to come by, we'd be glad to have you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Just
Ms.
wanted,
Ms. Bunt, I'm sorry.
thank you. Just wanted to let you know, remind you about the Habitat for Humanity shovel ceremony. It's going to be February 25th, Monday at 9 a.m. at 470 Whaley Street. That's for the 6 houses for the female veterans. I also wanted to mention Ellen Huser. She's our housing program manager, is retiring after 5.5 years with the city of Cocoa, and she has kept our federal and state housing grants in compliance in all this time. She is the lead within the county, and when I actually spoke with someone from the county and said that she was retiring, they said, "Oh no, what are we going to do?"
Yeah.
So I just wanted to tell her how much we appreciated her at the city of Cocoa, and how much she has assisted us in keeping our federal and state grants in compliance. And then the last thing is I just wanted to mention that Charlene Neuterman, our redevelopment program manager, was promoted to our deputy community services director. And so one of the things that she did last week was she went to the Florida National Register Review Board for the 307 Blake Avenue, which is the Moore Center, to place that on the National Register of Historic Places. And as you may be aware, in 1923, the school was constructed for Cocoa's African-American children and received support from the Julius Roswell Fund in the form of a financial contribution and building plans. Cocoa Junior High School is the oldest remaining Roswell school in the state of Florida and the only remaining Roswell school in Brevard County. The State of Florida Historic Preservation Office was proposing that the Cocoa Junior High School be listed in the National Register of Historic Places at the local level under Criteria A in the area of education and ethnic heritage. It is also being proposed at the local and state level for listing under Criteria B for its association with Harry T. Moore and John E. Gilbert. Moore was a former 4th grade teacher at the school who initiated a pioneering 1938 civil rights case. Gilbert versus Board of Public Instruction of Brevard County. And so I just wanted to mention that, that Charlene went up to Tallahassee. This is also what occurred when she worked for Public Works. So they also assisted us with the grants. And they were very, very impressed with the city of Cocoa. And they said that they would actually use the entire process of applying for the grants and also for the National Historic Registry as an example that they would use in their brochures and also on their website. So I just wanted to congratulate Public Works and Charlene in doing such a great job in getting that designation for the city and the Moore Center.
Thank you, Charlene and
Thank
Ed.
you.
Appreciate it. And congratulations. So, is that it? Okay,
No report.
no report.
No report.
Wow,
No report.
no report.
The attorney?
No report.
Assistant City Manager.
I do have a few items. The first one, you all,
Is this from John or? This is for-
it's a combination. I'll turn his light on while I do. The first item is the Police Advisory Board, just to let you know, to get your nominations in. We have 3 so far, and with an anticipated first meeting in April, some of the requirements of those appointments to do ride-alongs and be briefed and get up to speed with the police department requires about 30 days. And so those nominations will need to be in soon.
A question with reference to that. And then maybe the city attorney can address this as well. There was questions about if an individual was on another board within the city, would there be a conflict with being on the Citizen Advisory Board? And that was a,
Well, the citizen,
it's Citizen Advisory Committee?
yeah, the committee's not an ad hoc committee. There's no duration on it. You can go on to the next item. I'll look. I think there's a prohibition for serving on more than one board or committee unless one of the committees is an ad hoc committee, which is a committee of temporary duration, and that committee is not of temporary duration the way it's been approved.
Okay.
I had something too. So I got a question. This maybe for the city attorney. If first of all, I think we need a date set on when we need to choose that person or the civic organization. And if the council members do not provide anybody before that date, or can another member of the council provide them a person for their position or the person that they're nominating? Because I think it's been enough time at this point. I think that I think we all can, should be able to find someone to fill that position. So that's my question.
I don't have the resolution in front of me, but I believe each council member has one appointment.
Right.
So that's the way it's currently written. I can't remember if there's an override in the resolution that allows the council as a body to appoint somebody if one council member delays in the appointment. That's certainly your prerogative, the council's prerogative, if you want to change that resolution and that policy. I can tell you that there's one small change to the committee resolution that will be brought to the city council probably at the next meeting regarding the training requirements. Perhaps if the council is not ready, or each of the council members is not ready to make their appointment, maybe perhaps you can address that issue when that resolution comes to you, whether or not it would be prudent to change the policy.
Because the first date is for that meeting is already set, correct? Is that right?
I would have to, Chief Cantaloupe, do you have the actual date of that first meeting in
I
April?
don't have the actual date. I know we were looking at dates in April.
Right.
We were looking
Like the beginning of
figure in between all the other board meetings and council meetings, and to make sure we could find a date that would work, and then we could set the dates out from there.
Okay. I have two in mind. One was on a board already, and then there was another one that wasn't, and I just wanted to clarify. You know.
Either way, I mean, as far as the timing goes, I think out of maybe fairness to the appointed members, I think that they get recommended and appointed to that board as soon as possible, so they have sufficient time to, you know, for their schedule to allow to get with the police department, get that training, and then also prepare for that first meeting.
All right.
Can I have a question? Yeah, so, and my appointee will be applied by Friday, but I have a question about why is it called a committee versus a board? Because I was told when the Sustainability Advisory Committee was appointed that we were a committee because we had a specific project that we were trying to accomplish and not a long-term. We were not a long-term.
I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
I can't answer that right now.
Okay, you can go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I didn't mean to.
The next item, just want to remind everyone that this Saturday is the Mardi Gras event downtown. There are street closures that start at 3 p.m. and they're projected to end at about 10 p.m. And then on Sunday, following that event, is the Mardi Paws event down in Riverfront Park. There are no street closures associated with that event. On February 2nd, I did attend a neighborhood meeting regarding the McFarland Park issue and answered many questions from lot owners and those present at the meeting, and have attended 2 meetings now. Both, you know, there seems to be some conflicting opinions amongst the residents, and so what I did here at the meeting is that there would be a recommendation to resolve this issue sooner than later, and I believe that was direction from the city attorney as well back in October, due to the liability associated with the park. And so with that, staff would like to bring an item back for city council consideration at the next meeting.
Of course.
So just to provide an update on that. I do want to thank the finance department for what they've done with the budget book. Not only is it doubled in size, but there's some really good information in there.
Sure.
And specifically within the finance department, Laura Howell, Leah Taylor, and Anthony Hagan, they work on the budget every year, and putting this together certainly provides more user-friendly information for our citizenry, as well as, you know, myself. I've used it already on many occasions, just as a quick reference. So I really appreciate that. I'd like to congratulate Charlene on her promotion, and just so you all know, she'll continue her service with those CRA boards, and so you'll keep a familiar face there. And the last item was the upcoming, and maybe the mayor's going to announce it, but his town hall meeting next Tuesday evening, Civic Center, 6 p.m. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Goins.
I guess the first item I have is it's a young lady that's missing right now in the city of Cocoa. I don't know if y'all probably seen it online or not, but her name is Tashawn Jackson. I have a photo of her as well with her kids. She has 4 kids, 4 girls. So if anyone has any, know of her whereabouts, please get a hold of the police department. I think I look at it like I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I don't know what I would do if my family member would be gone. So I think Chief did commend him and Yvonne Martinez for swiftly working on getting the media there today. I thank him for that as well. It's a lot going on around in Brevard County and all over the country with people either being taken or just missing. So we want to bring awareness to that as well. Tomorrow is, for all the men, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So just kind of remind everybody of that.
Don't forget.
Trying to remind Mr. Cost right now as well, you know. So don't forget that. February 23rd, which is next Saturday, we have an event in the morning time. I think it's around 8 o'clock or so, doing a cleanup, and also it's called Roses on Rosa Jones. We're just trying to clean up the area. Another event that day as well with the Legends event. We're trying to do as many things as possible in the community to bring awareness to our community and being awareness definitely to our Legends in our community as well, as you've seen today. That's all I really had. I think I commend the staff definitely in the water department and finance. It's a lot of issues that come to me dealing with water. I appreciate the swiftness that they have with information. Because a lot of times people are not very happy when they call me about water issues. But I definitely appreciate staff, all of staff, for getting the things done. Sometimes when we call and, you know, sometimes it seems urgent, and y'all always get it done. So I appreciate y'all for that. That's all I had.
Councilman Bover.
No report.
Councilwoman Cost.
Okay, well, a lot of activity since our last meeting, but starting with, I attended the Dangerous by Design webcast. Probably a lot of people saw the article in Florida Today a couple weeks ago about Florida and many communities in Florida being the most dangerous streets in terms of pedestrian casualties, and it's certainly come to my attention since being elected. We've had a couple, so in appreciation for those streets and for the movement that we have embarked on to make some of our streets safer, starting with, well, we were over at Diamond Square ribbon cutting. That was an example of a safer street, as well as the street out here. So just looking at, I also attended the Transit One meeting, and that was, of course, a subject for the Central Florida Expressway Authority. Talked about that as well. A couple weeks ago, there was a meeting at the Melbourne City Council. They voted on the fluoride issue. I was really glad to see our own Jack Walsh there and to be on top of that issue. I think there are more and more citizens concerned with what's in their drinking water. And anyway, they voted to continue using fluoride. I think that we use fluoride at minimal levels, but you know, this may be coming up in the future. On the 28th of January, I participated in the annual Homeless Point-in-Time Count. I want to give a big shout out to Lieutenant Mike Delatorre and to Officer Hadaway. It was really important that they were there, and they were a big part of that day's success. The whole idea is to take an inventory of the homeless, go into the camps. It was certainly helpful. I spent the day with Officer Hadaway. I found him to be very smart, very compassionate, and an excellent communicator, really connected with people, and we were really able to draw out a lot of information. A couple of observations on my part. I was really struck by the fact that every woman that I interviewed had a history of domestic abuse, and that some of the women had ended up, that in fact had been the triggering event to them ending up homeless. So anyway, the other surprise to me was that so many people could talk about having been gainfully employed and actually having careers, and then in their later life ending up on the streets because things spiraled downward economically, either for health reasons or other. But also, I've been pursuing, I really think that education is a cornerstone of our, if you want to call it revitalization, or our city being able to grow our economic development. So I met with the principal and assistant principal, Regina Tager and Chana Spear over at Cambridge Elementary. They spoke very highly about the police programs there, and they would really love to have a police resource officer. Of course, I know that's kind of not in the budget at the moment, but They seemed to think that that was really a valuable and worthwhile staff person to have there on campus to engage with the kids. The other big takeaway was that they have lost 3 teachers this year, which means that particularly in elementary education, it's really difficult to have a cohesive school year when your teacher keeps leaving. So there would really have any incentives. I don't know, I don't know really as a city council person how much I can do, but whatever I can do to be supportive, I would really like to see when we consider affordable housing, we consider teacher positions, we actually allocate just like we do. Those are such important pillars of our community to have in our working class communities. It would be great to be able to offer them incentives as well. I also met with Dr. Collins, or rather Dr. Wilson, at Cocoa High, and that was also eye-opening in several regards because I know they're they're well known for their sports programs, but I was impressed to learn that Cocoa High School Chorus is nationally acclaimed and has been invited to perform at the 2019 National Fall Sing Remembering 9/11. So they're actually going to be performing at Carnegie Hall. This is a very big deal, and it's something we really need to get the word out about, and they're going to need to raise some money to do it. So I'm hoping a lot of sectors of the community will come together to really celebrate them and promote them and reflect well back on our community, because again, economic development is hard to attract people here if our schools can't impress them. And I think there's probably some stories here that we're not getting out, because Dr. Wilson also talked about they have 27 students that are graduating with their AAs out of that high school program. They've really, particularly in the second quarter, they've increased their all A students. The grades have gone up. I know that Crosswinds, which is the facility, I guess, that handles kids that are kicked out of school, that is a weight on them. As I understand, it's a weight on our police department. I'm not sure how we can, and all those kids are from all over the county, but they're in Cocoa physically, and therefore they go to Cocoa High, and it really draws on the resources there, as well as on our own police department. I'm hoping that, maybe we can really look at what that represents economically, and I'm just looking forward to researching that more and looking for any help or solutions to that issue. Of course, I attended a couple of the ribbon cuttings that you guys did, and I was really impressed with the resiliency planning workshop that we went to last night, the strategic planning. Looking forward to working with the Sustainability Committee, working with them, coming up with a plan that can be incorporated into our own comprehensive plan. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you, ma'am. And I just want to make a comment. I think it's great that the 2 council members, the 2 new council members, are talking about some of the things that they're doing, because I just want people to know that we are busy and we really care about our community. I mean, we really care about what's happening in the city. We're all out working hard, trying to make a difference throughout the city, and I applaud the staff and just everyone that's involved. And with that being said, I want to also just thank Officer Hathaway. I saw a posting on Facebook from some of my friends at an event that he was at, and I think it was Eastern Florida. Is that where it was? Yeah, and I know they sent me some pictures they wanted added on to the PD's website of him with some of the kids, and they were so grateful. They said he really made the kids' day out there, so I really appreciate him, as well as the other officer that can't think of his name, that come to Emma Jules.
Officer Leach.
Officer Leach, yes. Yeah, Officer Leach. And I've ran into him at several events, so they love him everywhere he goes. So I really appreciate those. I appreciate all the officers for what they do. And also, I wanted to thank Ms. Howell for winning the scholarship from the Space Coast League of City. That's an honor, and we really appreciate you. I know that John, I think John was the one that kind of encouraged you to put in for that, and they're really impressed with your information that you put on paper there. They just stood out, and you as well as the clerk for the city of Rockledge. But I commend you and her as well for winning those scholarships. And I was at Endeavor Elementary School this morning. It was early. My days have been starting early in the morning, like about 6, and ending sometime 9 or 10 o'clock at night, if not later than that. But I had the pleasure of running to one of the former astronauts that I've had the pleasure of spending time with out the Space Center, Mr. Winston Scott, astronaut Winston Scott. He was there to speak to the students at Endeavor Elementary School, and I was just, I think that this guy actually flew on the shuttles, and I was one of the guys that was loaded some of the hypergulls on the shuttles in the SRB. So it was a nice little reunion there, and also. I want to talk about just one last thing. There's a whole list of stuff. I'm not going to go through it because, I'm just about making a difference. As long as I'm making a difference, that's all that matters to me. And but I do want to mention one of our shops down here, Bobby's at Parkside. She was one of the individuals that provided the clothing for a fashion show that we had that the League of Women Voters put on. And I had the pleasure of being the MC. I finally figured out why I wasn't one of the models. Yeah, I figured it out real quick once I saw the models. But I told them, I said, in 6 months with this Mayor's Challenge, I'm going to lose that weight. So I told them I'll be back. But I had the pleasure of MCing something I've never done before. It was way out of my comfort zone, but I got comfortable and enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Councilwoman Koss and Councilman Goins were a couple of models that were there. They did a great job. I know Councilwoman Koss said that she made a statement, I've never done this before. And then she gets out there and she's spinning and sliding across the floor, and I'm going, what? So, but they all did a great job, and I thank the League of Women Voters for inviting us there. And then also, I wanted to thank Simone Archer from the Men's Warehouse. They provided the clothing for the men that was there. So, that was Bobby Whitmore and Simone Archer, and I thank both of them. They did an awesome job, and it was really nice. But with that being said, we're moving forward. The city's moving forward. We're nowhere near where we need to be, but we're going to get there, and we're going to do it together. And it's not about any one of us. It's about the city as a whole. It's something that we're all going to accomplish. And then we all can hold our heads up and say, hey, we were a part of the changes that are happening in this city. We're going to make this one of the greatest cities in Brevard County, if not the greatest city in Brevard County, because it should be. Because we're strategically located in the right position, to be a great city. And we just need to take advantage of that and capitalize on some of the things that are surrounding us. Rockledge almost built out. Port St. John's just a housing area, and we're right here in the center. We got 520, 528 coming through our city, and we're the biggest. We are the main water supplier in the county, and there's no way and no reason why we should have the reputation and we should hear some of the comments that we hear with reference to our city. We're going to change that, but I know Mr. Eady talked about in the economic breakfast about the community left behind. That community that's been left behind, it's going to get caught up with the rest of the community. As the city as a whole, we're going to move the city forward as one, not just by portions So we're going to make sure everyone get their fair share when it comes to their sidewalks, their roads, the services that they receive. We're all equal, and that's the way it's going to be, and it has to be that way. And I would accept no less. So with that being said, if I can get a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, yes, and I know the city manager did, I'm sorry, Don, the city manager did mention the town hall meeting, but I encourage everyone to come out, because this is not going to be your typical town hall meeting on the 19th. There's going to be about a 15-minute presentation after introductions by one of the city staff with reference to some of the projects that's happening in the city. After that is going to be myself talking and the residents, because I want to hear. I want to hear the concerns of the residents, because we're coming to you. We want to hear what you have to say, so we can move our city forward. And now, with that being said, Mr. Bovair.
Oh, I made a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Don't interrupt me again.
We get a motion adjourned by Councilman Bovair and a second by Councilman Goin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.